Hello, good morning, everybody. So today we are going to start the next phase of this interview series. And so this is going to be based on Deborah Fries's system model of transformation. So I'm going to begin by showing a presentation. Let me see. I can start sharing. Oh, I think host has to enable me to share.
Sailesh, does it let you request permission to share?
It does. Well, it's saying host has to enable host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay. I'm going to make you a co-host. I don't see where to do that. See if that does it.
Okay, you are co-host now. Let's see. Start sharing. Yep. Allowed me to share. So you can all see this, right? See the presentation? All right. So days 5 through 9, basically this is going to be based on Deborah Fries's model of system transformation. Today it's going to be about illumination and education. And tomorrow and day after, it'll be about protection, which is, so Deborah Fries said that any system transformation has to undergo these 4 changes. And then Renee King-Sonnen will be talking about hospice care. And finally, Jamin Shavli will be talking about trailblazing. So today it's illumination with Jessica, Julie, and Madhavi. So I talked about this yesterday. Now, how would you respond in a house fire? Imagine that you're in the house and the house is catching fire and the doors are shut and the windows are closed and you cannot get out. Wouldn't you say that the first thing that you should do is to stop throwing flames on the fire, stop throwing fuel on the fire? Then wouldn't you also say that you have the right to ask others in the home not to throw fuel on the fire? That is veganism. Because if you look at what is happening on the planet today, the earth is on fire. The earth is on fire. Literally, it's on fire. It's heating up. The temperature has gone up by 1 degree Celsius. And if you look at why are we setting fires deliberately on earth, the number one reason for setting fires is for animal agriculture. So these are all the fires that were set in 1 year throughout the world just to clear more land for grazing animals. So when we ask people to go vegan, we are saying, please do not set fires anymore on earth. So this is why we have a right and we have the obligation on behalf of the rest of humanity and on behalf of all other life on earth to ask our fellow human beings to stop setting fires on earth, to go vegan. And this is the personal change that's needed for us to achieve the social transformation. Because Gandhi said, there is no social change without personal change. That's what he meant by when he said, be the change you want to see in the world. And he used that in his independence movement. He said, I consider it my duty to induce people by every honest means to wear khadi. So there he was asking the people of India to change their clothes. That was the personal change he was asking people to do. Change your clothes from British clothes to khadi clothes made by Indians in India. And that personal change united the people of India together. And at first people laughed at him. They said, how can you take on the mightiest empire the world has ever seen by changing your clothes? But he convinced people to do that. And then by 1930, you can see everyone was wearing khadi clothes. This was the Salt March of 1930. It was a very successful movement. And throughout India, people were wearing khadi clothes, and the British government was on its knees begging to negotiate with Gandhi. This is the reason for the British government to impose the salt tax, because they were losing money. in the largest industry in England at the time, which was the textile industry. So the Salt March was like the culmination, and after that began the negotiation between Gandhi and the British government, and India got independence 17 years later. The same way, when John F. Kennedy said, we will go to the moon by the end of the 60s. Within this decade, we will be on the moon. People laughed at him. They said, we can't even get someone to go up to space and come back down. And you're telling me we are going to send a man to the moon? But then it inspired the people of America. And we just worked on it. And within 7 years, man was on the moon. So you see this exponential transformation happening once people get into the mood, get into understanding why we are making this change and then working on it. The same thing happened in the internet. In 1995, I was working on the internet, and there was this article by Newsweek saying the internet is going nowhere. It's going nowhere. No, who's going to buy things on the internet? Who's going to read stuff off the internet? I can't even get a search question for the date of the Battle of Trafalgar working properly. So that was the article. And one of the problems he was pointing out was that he kept getting these hourglasses saying too many connections, try again later. And so we were working on making the internet more robust. We were making it 10 times faster. And within 7 years, within 8 years, I overheard someone say, I can't live without the internet. The internet was everywhere. The internet had taken off. And of course, when you search for the Battle of Trafalgar, you got it. You knew the date. And that's Google's contribution. So that again was an exponential transformation that happened. And in 2005, the California governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, vetoed the gay marriage bill. And I was having dinner with a colleague of mine, and who was telling me, it's a good thing this happened. How can men get married to men? This is unthinkable. So it was unthinkable in general at that time that this could be normal. And by 2015, it was normal. It was, again, an exponential change in social attitudes that happened. And within 10 years, we went through this transformation. And the same thing happened to me in 2015 when I presented this paper at the American Geophysical Union's fall meeting, where we showed that if the whole world goes vegan, we can literally reverse climate change. We can literally sequester 265 gigatons of carbon by bringing back the forests that used to be there on the land that we are currently using for animal agriculture. And so this is just, it's not even creating new forests, it's bringing back the original forests. That itself was enough to reverse climate change. And over 100 climate scientists came to talk to me after that during the meeting, and they all said, yeah, you're right, but it'll never happen. And I said, aha, I've heard this before several times, and I know then it's going to happen. And sure enough, the next year, the search for the term vegan exceeded the search for the term Coca-Cola by 2016. And it was growing exponentially. And the interest in veganism was happening in all the rich countries of the world, United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, which is where the transformation has to be, because the rich countries are causing the most damage. So when the rich countries say we are going to change, then that means it's a change for the whole world. And this is why fast food companies are now considering vegan meat options. Just like, in the Khadi movement, eventually the British had to come and negotiate with Gandhi. So the corporations now have to give us what we are demanding. As the vegan movement grows, they have no choice but to give us vegan meat options. It's not that they're trying to promote veganism. It's either they do that or they're going to go bankrupt. And Forbes reported a 7x growth in veganism in 3 years between 2014 and 2017. So in the US, it increased by a factor of 7. So which means if we just continue the same rate of growth, by 2020, it will be another factor of 7. By 2023, a factor of 49. And by 2026, a factor of 343. This means that if even 0.3% of the people were vegan in the US in 2017, 100% will be vegan by 2026. So that is what we are working towards, a vegan world by 2026. We know it is already on track to happen. We need to get all the collateral in place for it to arrive. And that is the Vegan World 2026 project. And this is the Khadi movement of the 21st century. And this is why I say that I consider it my duty to induce people by every honest means to go vegan. Okay? I'm just paraphrasing Mahatma Gandhi. And that's what today's discussion is going to be about. Because, you can change the world. You must change the world. And through documentaries, we can change the world. This is what Howard Lyman said in Conspiracy, Sustainability Secret. And so our guests today are Jessica Lannine, Madhavi Kolte, and Julie Wayne. Jessica contacted me first some early this year, and she wanted to be involved in showing documentaries. And she gave me this detailed email about how to do it. And I read through that and I said, this is a brilliant idea. So I told her to go ahead and start Climate Healers groups. The idea being, show these documentaries on a regular basis, get people to come and watch them, because documentaries are a way to independently tell the story to people. It's a third party telling the story. It's not one-on-one. And so people tend to listen to them more dispassionately than when they're hearing it from someone. So that was the idea behind Climate Healers groups. And then when Julie and Madhavi came along and said, we want to do the same thing in India, I said, come on, let's get this going. And so, and Julie and Madhavi are organizing a conference, a health and sustainability conference in Pune in late November, where we are going to actually certify a whole bunch of people to become climate healers, because they're going to go through, they're going to watch all the documentaries during the conference, and they're going to go through the essence of the webinars that I've been giving. So it's really about educating people, illuminating them, showing them that this new world can happen, will happen, and therefore they have a duty to participate in it and help them participate in it. So thank you all so much for coming. And Jessica, please take it away. How did you come up with this idea, and how did it all get started? Let me stop sharing first. So.
Hi, first, thank you for the invitation to be part of this conversation. And I'm honored to work with you on this. So the idea came to me, I guess, been thinking about it for a long time, about what can we do and what's the most effective way to reach people and to get the ideas out there. And then when the VOMAD study, the 2019 VOMAD study came out and said that the number one thing that makes vegans first seriously consider going vegan, the number one thing people said was feature-length documentaries. And so that was a global survey of over 12,000 vegans. So felt like that was a pretty good place to be going. And so the idea then was, well, how do we get people to see these films? So we can screen them in public places for free, and just invite our friends and family to come and see them. And then hopefully they can invite their friends and family and so on. And we can create this chain reaction of people coming in and seeing these films that we know really reach people.
Right. No, that's beautiful. I mean, I hadn't put those together until you came and showed it to me. Because so far it's been, I was just going along, creating documentaries, working with people on, and then telling this story. But it was crystal clear once you showed it to me. It became crystal clear. Thank you so much for that contribution. It's only when all of us, see our place in it and say, oh, how I can use that to further my goals. So it becomes our common goal, right? That we are in this together. We are here to create a vegan world as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So, Julie and Madhavi, how did you come up with this idea of a conference? And tell us more about the conference.
Yeah, so after we did the screening of Cowspiracy, we realized that we need to go ahead, and we started the Climate Healers chapter after speaking to you. And since Climate Healers work is really not known in Pune or in India, and we saw the difficulties in reaching out to people to establish the presence of Climate Healers in Pune, we realized that we need to do something more significant. And that's why, and we got to know about your road show. And we had to bring in more content to reach out to people in a more organized way and to have experts, because we are not experts to give the information to people. So that's how we decided. And the urgency, of course, we decided to have it within 4 months. So we're really working hard on it, and we decided to have the conference. So our objective is to reach out the citizens, because they are not aware of a lot of things, especially about veganism and the way the environmental problems are escalating and the diseases are escalating, and they are not connecting all the problems properly because they have not been informed properly. So that's what the objective of the conference is, and get the younger generation more to understand about it. And so we thought we'll show all the documentaries and have a discussion after it, because they'll have so many questions. And as you rightly said, it'll be as good as a certification, because they will be watching everything, and they'll be directly discussing with you and all the experts. So they'll have their doubts cleared. Yeah.
Right.
So that's how we thought we'd go about it.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to do that at the end, give everyone certificates so that they go back and they can start their own Climate Healers groups.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted just to go back one step and talk about the Pune Climate Healers, so Climate Healers of Pune. And it was really this idea of, I had actually started the Anonymous for the Voiceless group in my town a few years ago, actually. And when I started the group, there were less than 300 groups internationally of Anonymous for the Voiceless. And this grew exponentially. So now there are more than 1,000 or 1,500 all over the globe. And when I saw how, Facebook, for better or for worse, can actually be such an extraordinary tool for organization, Madhavi and I spoke together and we said, we have to do the same thing. We want climate healers to do the same thing, so that there are climate healers all over the globe, and that, they're independent of one another, the way Anonymous for the Voiceless is, though there is a certain homogeneity, of course. I mean, we're all climate healers. We're not going to start talking about something else. We have a very, very clear objective, very clear goals, and the way about, achieving these goals have been pretty much established, more or less. So it really became very important for us to start that group, that it will become, of course, the background and the framework that's going to host the conference.
Right.
So I wanted that to be really, because I want Climate Healers to become a household name. I really do. I want it, especially in the community of people who are environmentally conscious, vegan, health conscious, whatever, the triad, shall we say, of these three very important axes of stopping to eat animals, basically. I think that there's room for everybody. And we were struck, Madhavi and I, about the holistic approach of Climate Healers, which I personally, whom I'm active in many, many different groups, I've never seen that before. And I think this is something that people are really, really attracted to. The idea that we're looking at something really as a whole, as the systemic, a systemic being almost, you know, that has it's very organic. And that when we change one thing, or when we transform one thing, everything else is going to transform with it. So.
Right. It's about telling the new story, the story that
Yes.
we do belong exactly as we are, and we are transforming as a result of that. You know, because people tend to take things literally, like the Mahabharata. If you take it literally, you say, well, you know, there's going to be a war and everyone is going to die. There'll be only 7
Yes.
people left at the end, or 10 people left at the end. And then you say, well, who are those 10 people? So we are fighting about who those 10 people who will be left at the end. That is taking things literally. And it was such a beautiful story that was symbolic. It's symbolic about our own, you know, personal enlightenment. That's what the story of the Mahabharata was. And so this is about, and in the Mahabharata, Krishna says, I'm always with you, right? So don't worry, I'm always with you. I'm always in charge. So, which means that God is always in charge. And so that is the new story that we are telling, that we are, that there is this safety, that there is this faith that's going to bring us out of this mess that we are in. And we see a way out. You know, those numbers those numbers came from science. When I said if you just bring back the original forests, you can literally reverse climate change. That's indisputable. It's a scientific information that's indisputable. So it is about spreading that story so that people feel like, yeah, we are part of something much larger, and so we can contribute to it. Thank you so much. You know, I remember this video of how it was talking about how system change happens, or how movements happen. And so they show this one guy dancing, doing a crazy dance, and then 2 other people start dancing with him. And suddenly everyone starts dancing with them, right? So I've been this crazy guy dancing all by myself. And then you all came along and started dancing with me. It's amazing. You know?
Thanks for showing us the steps, you know. That's the whole thing.
No, but the most important thing we realize that each one of us has the power to contribute and bring the change.
Exactly.
And this is what we want to give let people know. We all, I mean, I'm amazed at every discussion we've been having every night. This point comes up, and this is what we want to give people, that we all are empowered to do this. We just need the direction, and we are all in line.
Right. Now that again was Gandhi's message as well. You know, and even Howard Lyman was saying, you can change the world, and you must change the world. Yeah. So, what other information do we need to create? What other tools do we need to create with Climate Healers to make your job more successful?
Yeah. If I were to look at my challenges here, for me to bring in the Indian context is very important. I'm sure you've observed with your discussions during Cowspiracy as well. And even primarily when it's addressed, it's called veganism is addressed as a more Western lifestyle, which is a need of the hour in the West. They're not, even when I try to broach the topic here with environmentalists, it's always obvious that they're going to say that it's a Western problem and they need to deal with it. So I need more clarity and help, tools, whatever, to clarify this.
There's a severe lack of information in India, really. There's just been so little work done, so little research done, and also, of course, stymied by a whole government. I mean, Modi and company, but but just so much resistance on a more governmental scale because of the whole religious aspect and things like that. I mean, it turns into politics, unfortunately, as it usually does. So the resistance in India, where you do have such a great number of vegetarians, lacto-vegetarians, is quite, it's specific, you know. I think that there's things that we are going to, that are challenges that are very specifically Indian challenges.
Right. So would that then be the case in every local area? We need to have a Pune, I mean, a China-specific climate healers, Japan-specific, etc.
I was thinking about this very much yesterday after Jasmine gave her speech, because she was talking a lot about activism. And one of the things I wanted to talk about as well is activism, public activism and private activism. And I realized, having, you know, listened with great interest what she was saying, is I live in France. I'm half the year in India, but I do live in France. And most of my activism work, my really street activism, my, you know, physical activism takes place in France. Our laws are totally different. So I was listening and I was thinking of, you know, well, how do I put that in the French context? Because it really is very, very different. What we can do, what we need permission to do, what we have to declare beforehand, how the state is involved in, you know, even private demonstrations and things like that. So it will be a challenge, and I think that it's a different perspective, of course. And I think that that was the one thing I did want to actually bring up, is how to, I mean, the fact that there are 5 people here, right, including Deborah. We're in 5 different cities, right? We're in 3 different countries and 3 different continents. This is called a global community. This is extraordinary, right here in our virtual space. And yet at the same time, but that's to be expected, you know, as Climate Healers grows and we get people from other places, it's expected that it's going to be sort of North American centered, because that's where most of the people in Climate Healers are. And I think we would benefit greatly by, you know, I don't know how to do it. You know, I've been asking myself, even here in France, I'm certainly not going to be able to translate everything. But, you know, how do we do this to get people that are in very different countries, very, very, very different, you know, specificities of different countries? How do we get these people on board? Because the message, Sailesh, is of course universal, right? It's global, it's universal. And we all, we live in societies that have all normalized violence, for example, that have all normalized selfishness and greed. And we all need to get, no matter where we live, to the point of normal compassion and normal nonviolence and normal sharing and generosity. So in that way, we're all the same, but we all have these very specific country or society specific challenges.
Right. Yeah, so it started in the US, but it started in the US, but I was traveling always to India. So it was basically India plus US. India educated me a lot about what is really going on. In fact, I speak about that in my presentations, you know. And India is going to be one of the most affected countries from climate change, probably the number 2 affected countries. So this is why India has a lot at stake in this fight and in this struggle, so to speak, to this is really the battle of the Mahabharata that's happening right now, you know. In fact, the parallels are so eerie because there are 100 corporations joining up with Facebook to create the Libra Association. That's the 101 Kauravas right there.
Yeah.
You know, so
Exactly.
But we don't want the same ending. We don't want the same ending. We don't want a battle in Kurukshetra. We want a whole different.
No, we do want the same ending, because in the Mahabharata, the Pandavas won.
Yeah, the Pandavas won, but at what price? You know, basically everyone was disseminated. So
well, so if I look at symbolically, It's the 101 Kauravas are all our 101 bad characteristics, because Kauravas represented, material desire, ego, you name it, lust, everything was there, the 101 bad characteristics. And the Pandavas represented justice, courage, strength, kindness, and compassion. That one. So that one. So this is really, they were speaking symbolically about our personal battle within us, and how in 18 days you can actually get enlightened. Now we have to decode the Mahabharata to understand what are those 18 days. What do we need to do in those 18 days to get to that enlightened state? Okay, but it's a beautiful epic that encompasses what I think is going on now. I mean, I'm not saying that we will all get enlightened in 18 days, but I'm saying it's that battle that we have to fight within us and in society. And in society, saying that don't let those who are destroying the planet win. Work for those who are regenerating the planet. Okay? Because there is one group, which says that this is the way it is supposed to be. We are all supposed to destroy the planet, and then eventually a savior will come along and say, you are the chosen people. I'm going to take you along with me, and the rest of the people can die, right? And I say, hey, that story doesn't resonate with me, because I know I'm not one of those chosen people according to you, right? It doesn't resonate with my granddaughter. It doesn't resonate with so many people. Majority of people are supposed to die off. And I'm saying, excuse me, that is a wrong interpretation. That's a literal interpretation of our epics and of our religious texts. And there are other more nuanced interpretations that speak to me much more. They resonate with me much more. And even in the Mahabharata, Krishna says, I am with you all the time, right? So I am in charge. So let go of your ego and let me do it through you. So, and I prefer that interpretation, in which all of us thrive, all life thrives, and we overcome our selfishness and our greed and our lust, and our apathy, because that is how we heated up the planet, through selfishness, greed, and apathy. We heated up the planet, and we had to go through that to create the tools that allow us to talk across 3 continents, to create the tools that allow us to coordinate our actions and regenerate life. The same camera that's being used to spy on us is the camera that can be used to make sure that the lion cub is safe once she's born. Right? So we have a way to contribute with our technology for the good of all life. Anyway, I'm speaking to the choir here.
Yeah. But I think we have to be careful not to expect technology to save us.
Right.
I think this is really a common thing that people are saying, yes, we'll do this geoengineering or this or that, and we can carry on the same way we've always been. We can just go from fossil fuels to whatever, whether it's wind power, whatever, but let's just carry on as before. This is one of the reasons I think that the climate change, the whole carbon, fetish that people have is so popular, because it's consensual, and it means let's just go on and do what we've been doing, but we just have to change what we're exploiting in order to continue having the same life.
Yeah, that's actually one of Gandhi's first books that he wrote was Hind Swaraj. It's a very important book because it was banned by the British, and that's what allowed Gandhi to become popular in India. Otherwise, people didn't know about him. And in that, he said that he pointed out the way in which Western civilization is progressing is based on fixing symptoms of problems. So addressing the symptoms of problems and then carrying on. And that how we need to be holistic and start looking at the root cause of problems and address them, and so yeah, this is why I'm pretty sure that like Greta Thunberg I mean, she's a very sincere kid and she is doing her best to tell her story. But I question the motivation of those who are giving Greta Thunberg the platform to go to the UN and talk about things. What is their motivation? Their motivation is to promote what you're talking about. You know, this geoengineering and this, because there's a lot of money to be made, right? So, because this is, you know, it's about doing a bypass surgery on the planet or doing a, you know, heart transplant for the planet, right? Because there's a lot of money to be made in that. And that puts us in the same, but I tell people, look, there is no stash of tigers left. So are you going to geoengineer a tiger? So clearly, you know, we tell the story that everything is great for us now. It's much better than it was 100 years ago. So therefore, let's continue doing what we're doing. But everything is not great for the tiger. Everything is not great for the lion. You know, they're all dying out.
Everything is not great for so many human beings as well.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, I think that it's true that there's been a lot of, you know, a lot more people who have access to healthcare, for education and things like that. But there's still a great number of people who are suffering terribly. You know, and this whole growth has really, more than anything else, has actually been there to keep them down, to make them be more exploited and things like that.
In fact, I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking about climate change and climate healing at a group of Indians. It was an IIT Madras or IIT Pan IIT meeting or something like that. And the question that I got was, you know, why are you preventing India from developing the same way as America did? And then, you know, then we can talk about it. We have to let India develop like America. And I said, do you really want to have 49% of your people on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications or illegal drugs on a daily basis? That's what American development has done for America. Okay, we are all suffering too. Americans are suffering too. So it's not that, you know, oh, that's such a great lifestyle, we need to get there, and then we'll figure out how to solve the problem with you. No. You're already there. Okay, you already have all the wisdom, the spiritual wisdom. You know, India had that wealth, and rather than throwing it all away and starting over, and then coming along and saying, okay, we have to go through the same phase, I say, let's leapfrog. Let us leapfrog. Just like, you know, India did not go through the landline telephone revolution, went straight to cell phones. So India can do the same. Leapfrog, get to veganism, because that's where America is heading. And to get to veganism, it's easier for Indians.
It's much easier. They're halfway there. Absolutely.
They're already halfway there. Most people are already vegan, you know, at least the poor people are already vegan.
But Sailesh, don't you think, I think you mentioned a word that's very, very important, that you talked about wealth. And I think it's what wealth is. What is wealth really? What does it mean to be wealthy? And it's been, you know, it's been transformed into things, into material in the United States. And in India, we still do have that wealth of spiritual values. And, you know, I've always felt that I love working in India just because ahimsa is really an ideal for almost all Indians. The way renunciation is, even if they're not going to go into the forest at the end of their lives, it's still an ideal for many people. And they look at that as being something that they wish that they could attain. Perhaps they can't because they're still grounded in, you know, in worldly problems or things like that. But the same thing with wealth. And I think that there still is that store, whether it's just collective memory or whether it's present today in India, of the idea of non-harm, you know, and it's certainly not like that in France. I can promise you that.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to add something here, but I mean, ahimsa, yes, it comes from India. And as you say, the wealth of spirituality is there in India. But it's very misunderstood now. They are not really relating to the true meaning of these words, spirituality and ahimsa. So that is worrisome for people like me who know what is going wrong here in their connection with, because even when I talk to people or environmentalists about wild animals, and they're so concerned about them, but they refuse to accept the fact that it's animal agriculture, it's excessive dairy production, and the highest cattle population in the world, which is possibly, which is not proven, but it's possibly the reason why we are also our wildlife is threatened.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there's misunderstanding, misrepresentation of these words now.
Yeah, it's normal though. I think this is what happens when because the mainstream media is telling that old story, and they're constantly pumping that story out, and people are getting confused. But the spiritual wealth is there. So this is why I used to do all these rituals mechanically, that people, because I went through the whole process, right? In India, I grew up in India, but I did not understand what I was doing.
Exactly.
It's only after I started working on the environment and I started searching for things on the internet that I found out the true meaning of those rituals. And I realized how much wisdom is coded in those rituals. So this is why I think it is easier in India to wake that up, because people are still doing those rituals.
Yes,
People
they
are
are.
still celebrating the Diwali, right? Diwali festival. Diwali is about enlightenment. It's about giving up your material wealth. Okay, it's giving up and then saying, I'm looking inside for my happiness and not outside. And when you look outside for happiness, that's a sign that you're not enlightened. So when we show that to people, then I think it's easier. I really think it's easier to wake up people in India than it is in the US. Or because we have that background.
Thank you. Jessica wants to say something.
Thank you. Yes, for me, finding Climate Healers this year and finding Dr. Rao and all of his speeches and all of that online was mind-blowing. First of all, because of the information that I found, and also mind-blowing because of the inspiration that I found. And I know that, and I think Julie and Madhavi, I won't speak for them, but I think that they feel the same way, that we all want to direct as many people as we can to Climate Healers and to the Climate Healers website and to Dr. Rao, because, is that right, Julie and Madhavi? Nodding, okay. That we want to get people there on the Climate Healers website. And so while we do, screening films is our #1 method of education to do that, or to spread the general message and get the information out there, we want to also be, as Julie was saying earlier, to get to everyone else who's already gotten part of it, but not everything and not the holistic view. So all of the people with who are already interested in climate and the environment, or all of the vegans, but they're not yet knowing about maybe year 0, or that we really can have a vegan world by 2026, and just everyone. And so with Climate Healers groups, we can screen the films and work individually, but also together on, I think, I'm not sure if anyone has mentioned Base Camp yet. Is this a good time to talk about the certification process and how one?
Sure.
Okay, so for anyone interested in starting a local Climate Healers group, one just needs to email chgroups@climatehealers.org, and someone can admit them into an online forum called Base Camp. And there are Climate Healers, Dr. Rao and others of us working together and collaborating and sharing ideas and what we're working on, asking questions and all of this. And it's just a great thing to be a part of. And also on Basecamp, then they will find everything they need to see what the certification requirements are, and everything they need to actually complete those requirements. And to start a group, someone needs to become a certified climate healer by doing basically 3 things: watching, reading, and talking. So the watching is to watch the 4 Climate Healers videos. That's going to be The Human Experiment, What the Health, Cowspiracy, and A Prayer for Compassion. And then the 7 webinars by Dr. Rao, the How Not to Go Extinct webinars. So watch those 11 things is number 1. Number 2 is to read the Climate Healers Group's Handbook, which is just a 20-page document that tells an overview of climate healers groups, and then the very specifics about how to start one and how to run one, and everything about screening films and holding Q&As if you choose to do that, and how to start your group on Facebook and all of that. And the third is to participate in a Zoom chat with Dr. Rao and some other Climate Healers Groups organizers about those things that you have watched, the videos and the webinars. And at that point, someone would be certified, can get certified, and then start their Climate Healers group and start screening, and they'll be ready.
Right. Thank you so much for that overview.
Yeah.
It's a simple process, and it's very similar to what Al Gore does, but it's also different. Al Gore does it as a training that you have to attend, which he talks. So it's more of it depends on one person. I really don't want it to depend on one person. I want it to become much more distributed and decentralized. Because I'm just creating things and leaving it out there. It's all open source and it's all given away. So both my books are also online, and you can read them online for free. And they're under Climate Healers. You'll see under the books tab, you'll see the books. And probably even your handbook, I can add it to the Climate Healers website. So it's in one place.
And I think I love the way that you say it, Dr. Rao, about the HEAL for human, earth, animal liberation. And as Julie said, I'm not familiar with anyone else who is putting it all together the way that you do. And even the vegan acronym that you have, the vitally engaged guardians of animals and nature. And,
right.
And I think just everything, the way that you put everything together is just amazing, and just it's so inspiring. And all of the information and inspiration on the Climate Healers website. So I think if we can also, going back to the question that you asked earlier about what would we need for our specific Climate Healers groups, I think after this talk and the more that we all are doing, there will be more people looking for it. If there can be one place, maybe on the Climate Healers website, that will show how people can start it. And I think that you have someone working on that already, but that's the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah, how to start a group.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that information. Okay.
Mm.
I can add that under the info tab. Do you have access to, because I can give all of you access to the website that you can edit. I think Deborah has access. She's been editing, so I'll add all 3 of you to that. So that you can add your own pages too.
Yeah, I know I have access. I was able
You've
to have
given
access.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But perhaps you need a tutorial on how to use Squarespace.
Yes,
Figure it out.
definitely.
I figured it out.
Definitely? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Deborah, can we open it to questions from the participants?
I'd like to add just one thing before can you hear me? You can't
Yeah.
see me, but that's okay. I think that.
We see you.
Yeah, you can see me? Okay, good. So one of the things that I wanted to add is that, of course, because I really wanted to talk about activism. Jasmine talked about activism yesterday, but I also wanted to touch upon it because Climate Healers is, and belonging to a Climate Healers group and starting one's chapter and talking about climate healers, spreading the word is very, very important, of course, and this is what we're here to encourage people to do. But I think that we have to remember that there are all different other types of activism. And I do believe that there are very few forms of activism that are, that we don't know yet. We don't know the strategy. We talked about strategy a bit. We don't know the strategy that's going to get us to a vegan world. So if we knew it, I think we'd be there already.
Right.
So I think that really sort of, it's not that everything goes, but I think people have to really go into themselves and understand what is best for them. Everybody has a forte. Some people are much more outgoing than others, have no problem speaking, doing street activism. Other people are a little bit more shy, but the fact is to be active, because activism is just, is that me? Is that my microphone? No. Activism is just, is really being active. So I think in a public, publicly, it's very important for everybody to be active in their own way. But I also think it's really, really important for us to be privately active, and to try and be exemplary, not to be an example, but to be an example to ourselves, and to try and embody as much as we possibly can the transformational process in climate healers, but in our own private lives. So that will mean, I think, trying to get towards zero waste. That will mean to try and, to try and boycott, if practicable, impossible, multinationals in those exploited industries. It will mean, trying not to buy bottled water, all of these types of things, trying to lessen, not necessarily our carbon footprint. I don't like that name. I would say our ecological footprint, because I think there's just too much of this craze about carbon, which of course is a big problem, but there's so many other ways that we are destroying our ecosystems. And I think if we talked about our ecological, footprint, it would be a little bit more pertinent. So I just really want to encourage everybody to try and be the change that you want to see in the world, but also in your own private sphere.
And if anyone has any ideas of things they want to start or things they want to do and they've never heard of it before, go for it. And Veg Fund also, if anybody's not familiar with Veg Fund, you can apply for grants for all kinds of activism activities and events. Everything. Just check out the Veg Fund website, and they're there to answer questions also.
And lastly, everybody should take care of themselves very well. Start meditating, learn to meditate. It's a very, very important tool to keep yourself afloat in a world that can be extremely brutal sometimes. I recommend it.
Right.
I read a question in the question and answer box, and this lady has mentioned that India's dairy consumption is really going high, and we really cannot say that India is still safe than the other countries, because the dairy consumption is really worrisome. And if we continue to quote India as a safe country, as compared to the rest of the countries, we are allowing people here to be more resistant. That's what my experience is also. So I think it'll help if India is also quoted in any of your lectures or documentaries or something, why India is having this problem, and a significant problem. Because India is not mentioned in any of these videos or talks, it becomes a reason to distance from this problem, which is definitely embedded in India also.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, the next documentary we are doing is called The Land of Ahimsa.
Yes.
And so Dolly Vyasahuja is doing that documentary, and it will be primarily focused on India.
Yeah.
And the dairy industry in India.
Yeah.
Because in fact, one of the reasons I went vegan was because I realized, I had justified to myself that dairy is okay. Because dairy is okay because of the way the accounting is done. And the accounting is done currently in a very in a local sensitivity analysis, what they call local sensitivity analysis, which is by looking at what happens if one person changes from animal food to vegan food. It doesn't make much of a difference for the overall. So it's just a matter of taking the overall numbers and assigning it to different people differently, right? That's all that happens. That's what they were doing. And in that accounting methodology, lacto-vegetarianism is only a little bit worse than veganism. And then comes meat eating, which is even worse, and so on. And it's how you did the accounting, right? So then I realized, because I'm an engineer, and I've gone through this kind of work before, there is something called global sensitivity analysis. So that in that global sensitivity analysis, you ask the question, what happens if the whole world goes vegan? And what happens if the whole world goes lacto-vegetarian? And when you do that analysis, you realize that vegan is very negative. So meaning it will actually literally reverse climate change when you go vegan, and the whole world goes vegan. But when the whole world goes lacto-vegetarian, you will destroy the planet even faster. So that's when I gave it up. I realized I was being deceived by the accounting mechanism. And that's when I gave it up instantly. This was now 12 years ago now, right? But the mainstream is still doing a local sensitivity analysis. So this is why I think Jane was right. I have to write a white paper on animal agriculture, a position paper on animal agriculture, and why it is the leading cause of climate change. We need to put it all together. The information is there on our website, but we need to put it all together in one white paper, and so that people can refer to it.
Can you also, or have you thought about, or have you already put your calculations for year 0 and submitted that formally to the WWF and all those organizations that work on endangered species and wild animal issues?
I can write that, but I can show why they're getting confused, because they look at a predator-prey model. So there is a model that they use called predator-prey, in which, in that model, as the prey population declines, the predator population declines, because there's not much for the predator to eat. And then the prey population increases because there are very few predators now, right? So you see the cyclic thing happening in their model. And they're using that to model humans and nature. So this is why they see, we can keep doing this until 2100, and you'll only lose 50% of the species by 2100, things like that, because they're using that model. And I'm telling you that model is wrong for humans versus nature, because humans are not dying off as they kill nature. We're actually growing in population. And we are deploying more and more sophisticated technology to catch the last remaining parts of nature that we can kill, right? So we are literally driving animals to zero because we have the capacity to do that. And so this is why I use an exponential model for my calculations, and which shows that by 2026 we are on track to wipe them almost all out. I mean, you could argue, there'll be 2 members of that species left, or 10 members of the species left, so you can pretend that they're not dead yet for the next 70 years or 100 years. I mean, look at what we did to the lion in India, right? We killed the lion to the point where there were only 10 lions left by 1900. There were only 10 lions left in 1900. And then they said, oh my God, we shouldn't be doing this. And so they created this Gir sanctuary in Gujarat, where they left the lions. And so now, there is a sanctuary in Gujarat where there are still Asiatic lions. And there are 100 lions now after 100 years. And they are so genetically weak because they have intermixed that they are literally dying off. And now they're saying maybe we should bring the African lions over to India and mate them. Now, this is a species that we know of, but 80% of the species that we kill off, we don't even know what they are. You haven't even classified them. How are you going to bring those back? So we are on this path where we think that, nature will take care of itself. No, nature is not going to be a part of nature. We have to do this together.
Seeing everything on Climate Healers and hearing you speak, Dr. Rao, has made me realize that in a way that I haven't ever realized it before. I mean, I've heard of and thought about, yes, we're nature, and I've heard or read someone say, if we continue this war with nature, we will win, but we'll also lose because we're also nature. But in the way that everything is presented on the Climate Healers website, it really, I think, like we are all one, all of the people, all of the wild animals, and all of the farmed and other exploited animals are all one, and in this together, and that we can work, all of the people can work together to try to help bring us all out of it.
Yeah, bring us all out of it. Yeah. And some of the scientific analysis tends to be based on, false models. Because ultimately we are all using models, right, to model nature. I mean, models are never correct.
So you guys ready to go to some of the questions over here? Some other questions?
Sure, sure.
Okay. There's one in the chat that says, Ken Wilber has a concept of waking up, growing up, cleaning up, as each person has an opportunity to progress through stages of consciousness development from a simple ego, an archaic level, to a level of cosmological worldview that values all our relations, including rocks and other planets. Thoughts? That's similar to what you were just talking about. We are all one.
Right, yeah. But he sees, Ken Wilber sees that as people are in different places in this evolution, and that we all have our own way to come out of that and, get to where we need to get to. And the best we can do really is to help them as they want to evolve. Help those who are on the fence come over. And once we are vegan, help them, once they're vegan, help them on other things, because veganism is just about not throwing fuel on the fire. Then we have to put out the fire. Then you have to help, regenerate the planet. And we have to figure out, this is why I think the new game is so important. The new game, the Aquarius game. I think that could be a way to get people to automatically raise their consciousness by playing that game.
Yes. And what you say about people going as they're ready, that speaks to this other question that was in the Q&A box about how do you firstly cope with it and change people around you. And this person was saying, I know a vegan activist whose own parents are not vegan. I'll raise my hand on that one. So yes.
Right. Yeah. Maybe your parents are not going to listen to you. They'll listen to others. So you're better off focusing on others, those who listen to you.
Yeah. I do a lot of street activism, and that is so true. That is so true. Very, very, very hard to convince the people you love the most, because you have the most at stake with those people. You're too invested with those people. It's so much easier to speak with strangers. It really is.
Right.
I heard Dr. Rao say something, I think it was on the Vegan World 2026 tour video I think I found on YouTube, and he was in Canada, and someone asked during the Q&A after he presented some information and said, well, Dr. Rao, what do we do about the people who, when we tell them everything and they've seen everything and they still are like, well, no, not yet, or not me, or I don't have to, or I can do that, or whatever reason. And Dr. Rao said something that changed my mind about it forever, the way that I think about it, and said, I believe what you said, Dr. Rao, is do your best and leave the rest.
Right.
And that changed the way that I could think about it. And then I think you talked about trying to go for the people who are already progressive in their thoughts and actions. versus people who are not. But that do your best and leave the rest, I always think of that.
Yeah.
Everyone in their own timing. And, okay, there's another one that says, we are at a crossroads where meditation, the gift of the East, and technology, the gift of the West, can come together as the most powerful tool to support, sustain, and develop climate healing in all its implications, with relieving the suffering of all sentient beings as the center point.
Absolutely. It's about taking the material richness of the West and combining it with the spiritual richness of the East, and creating this this environment in which all of us can thrive, all life can thrive. So it's just deploying. This is like the wishing tree story, right? You have to deploy your knowledge for the good of all, for good of others, not for ourselves, not directly for ourselves. So we have everything we need to make a vegan world. Now, we have everything we need. It's just that there are, but some people are combining the worst parts of the East and the worst parts of the West, putting it together and creating something that will destroy the planet as quickly as possible. Right. So that's the polarization that's happening now.
Okay, so this says, I agree, and I'm sorry, I can't see, it's cut off on my screen who this is from, but it says, I agree that individuals have to approach the existential issues as they see individually. For me, the priority is reconciliation with First Nation is Canada. Then there is an anomaly with respect to 9/11 and World Trade Center Building 7, which is a third tower of 47 stories that fell as a controlled demolition at 17 hours 20 minutes that day. How these relate to greenhouse gases is meaningful to me. And okay, and again, I can't see who this one is from. Hey guys, I am grateful for this discussion. Thank you all. I'm currently in my final year at university, and my senior project is about spreading awareness and veganism and being as loud about the problems of animal farming as possible. I think one of the most dangerous things about the internet today is that people can find data to support any of their beliefs on the internet. I think people need access to reliable and unbiased information. I would appreciate any thoughts and suggestions you all might have to share regarding this.
Yeah, in fact, one of the, because I took this course on plant-based eating from Cornell, and one of the most important lessons I learned in that course is, how do you find such data? How do you see data and say, okay, where did this come from? Who was funding them?
Exactly.
So
who funds
go
the
through,
data?
right.
Who funds it?
And then you see that they're showing you parts of the truth. I mean, they don't lie usually. They shade the truth, so that you don't see the other side. And so you see it as something different from what it really is. And this is how almost all science is mishandled and misinterpreted. So you have to look at who's funding it. We have to do our own analysis on that. That's what Cornell taught me.
It's the same thing with climate deniers, right? Climate change deniers, and you can get everything on the internet, and we tend to use the internet, most people do, as echo chambers. So they are going to go towards that information that best echoes what they want to believe.
Right.
And this is the big problem now, and it's
Right.
a big problem.
Right. And in fact, this is why at Climate Healers, I made a conscious decision not to take money from anyone, not to get funded by any foundation, not to get funded by, because I wanted to use whatever savings I have to do the best I can at coming up with what I think is reality. I'm an engineer. As an engineer, I have to work with reality. If I don't work with reality, I'll never build anything that works. So I have, I've had a successful track record building things that work, and I don't want to ruin that now, and create something that doesn't work, right?
Nice.
or only works for certain people.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so there's a question on Facebook that says, how do we get Greta over to Climate Healers? Is that, I'll let you address it as you choose.
Yeah, I guess she has to, someone has to tell her there is this information you can go look up and see if you resonate with that story. But, I really think that, I've been attending the UN meetings. I've gone to 3 of them. And I know how hard it is to get inside the meeting. They let you come outside, and then hang around on the outside, but never going, you're not allowed to go inside. And inside, they're actually talking about consumption, continuing the consumption, continuing the system as it is, right? So this is why nothing is getting done at these meetings. And so it's somehow getting Greta to see this new story, because she has a way to get in now. They've let her get in because they're trying to use her to promote their solar panels, so to speak. So they can make lots of money off of it. But yeah, you have to infiltrate that.
So I think she has a Facebook page and she gets so many comments, and I don't know if she reads her comments, but we can all, as a comment to her, put www.climatehealers.org.
Right.
Maybe with one fact, or just please read this. And for other people, same thing. Influential people whose voices are being heard in various ways. If we can go onto their onto their Facebook or whatever, and put that in there, maybe they'll see it.
Yeah, about a year ago, there's someone from Sweden who was contacting me on Climate Healers website. And so Maria Sandblad is her name. We started emailing each other, and she wanted to get Greta to look at this. But her handlers basically vetoed it. So they were very upset with her for even bringing it up. Because I think their handlers, her handlers were, because, when you have 5 million or 7 million followers, you get handlers because you become like a celebrity, so to speak, right? So yeah, at that point we gave up. I said, if she has handlers, then I don't think she'll ever see this.
So that kind of goes to this comment that's in the Q&A box. It says, aren't we putting too much expectations and hence pressure on Greta?
Right.
We need more Gretas in the elder generation. And, I love what you just said there, because I just have this visual of, if we have enough Gretas in the throughout the generations,
Right.
the message can be spreading, and we don't have to have handlers that will determine what we can and cannot say or share.
Something that Jasmine said yesterday was that, Greta's not so special, or this person's not so special. I'm not saying anything, against that, but I think that it's really important to remember that these extraordinary people, they're extraordinary in what she's saying, how she's, with her youth and her determination is quite extraordinary. But she's an inspiration. So let's use these inspirations that we have, and we're not going to imitate these people. We're going to go on our own road, but let's use these inspirations. It's something there in Buddhism. We say that, you can have people who will inspire you. You can have books that will inspire you, but you alone have to walk the path, right?
Right.
So we can all walk the path, and I think this is the most important thing join a Climate Healers group. Don't join a Climate Healers group. Whatever you think you have to do in order to make this very important, urgent message heard in your circles and make it reverberate, have it echo. That is no matter what it is in the animal rights movements. I happen to do a lot of work with animal rights, animalist groups. There's sort of they sort of poo-poo all of those people who become vegan because of environmental issues or for health issues or whatever other than the ethics. And we can agree that, of course, the noble path to veganism is ethics, but we are in a climate emergency. We don't have the time to do what I do, which is very painstaking, and I will do it until I can't do it any longer, to go out on the street and to talk to people and to allow people, to empower people to get back to their own values. We have to go further than that. Only if we have a vegan world soon, by whatever means it takes, any honest means that it takes, can we actually talk to people about compassion, empathy, justice, and everything else. So I just don't think that there's any one way of getting there. Whatever works, we have to know the language. We have to inform ourselves. I think it's the most important thing when we do activism is we have to be our own illuminator. We have to educate ourselves. We have to be able to give people information. And if we don't have the information, be able to give people places where they can find that information and those facts. It's urgent.
Yes. So there is one other comment here that says, Julian Cribb, environmental journalist, says more dangerous than nuclear bombs is our jawbone. A link to a YouTube video there. I have to take a look at that. Thank you. Okay, I believe that's all of the questions that I see at this moment. Yes, on the Facebook, it says, my goal with Greta, the Greta thing was to have more awareness on climate healers with celebrity help. Yes, she has 7 million followers.
Right.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay. And I'll read one more comment here. It says, as I have been learning more about this movement, I realize that there are so many nonprofit organizations and individuals out there that are contributing to this movement individually. But this made me think about the idea that a bundle of sticks fighting a battle is stronger than each stick fighting in its own battle. Wouldn't it be powerful if all these impactful individuals and organizations come together and unite so that we are more noticed? For instance, health-conscious nonprofit organizations that are working towards a whole food plant-based diet, uniting with organizations that are vegan, mostly
for environment.
Thank you. Yes. Mostly for environmental reasons, and other activists and organizations that are vegan for ethical reasons. They all have the same goal, but different motivations. Just a thought that I'm throwing out there.
I'd love it.
I agree with that.
It. Oh, so much so. This is, I think, the big problem, and this is the reason that there seems to be a lot of stagnation at moments, I think. And that is because, you know, there's a lot of infighting, and there's a lot of, well, you know, like mine is better than yours, this type of thing, whereas we all are seeking the same goal. And it gets to be frustrating sometimes, I can say.
Right. That's why the other acronym for HEAL is for vegan for health, vegan for environment, vegan for animals, and vegan for love.
Nice. And I see a comment there from Sailesh, that Dr. Rao, that says, sure, I'll write a white paper on local versus global sensitivity analysis.
Great.
Yes, I had asked me to write one.
Nice. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you were responding to conversation. And someone, Amira says, I just sent a PM to Greta about this discussion, and I gave her the link to today's show and Dr. Sailesh Rao's website and Facebook page. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes, and then there's a question, don't you think we should try to change those people or organizations who are doing good in other areas like religious, spiritual, children, etc., etc.? Think about that, Sailesh?
No, we can educate. We need to educate, and then they will change themselves. This is what the idea behind the prayer for compassion is. You know, so it's already resonant with their own scriptures. So it's for them to take that up and change themselves.
Yes, and you have a group within Climate Healers that is a group that is addressing the religious and
Right.
spirituality, right?
Right. On Basecamp, we have a group that's an active group on that too. So during the conference, we will sort of solidify all these Basecamp groups. We'll have different teams, the Education and Illumination team, which is what you are representing here. And then there'll be a team for protectors, team for hospice care workers, and team for the trailblazers.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's all for questions for today. Okay, there's someone wanting information about the upcoming Indian vegan documentary. If you guys want to get me that information, I can post it into the Facebook group and also put it into the
yeah, the Land of Ahimsa. I think that it's a Facebook. I'll just write it out here.
Okay. Excellent. The Land of Ahimsa documentary. Yes. And yes, have you seen the Game Changers documentary? What are your thoughts on it? Is it the next?
Yeah, I love it.
I loved it also.
Right.
We haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet either. I want to.
Yeah, yeah. But we're going to be showing it at the Pune Health and Sustainability Conference.
Right.
Yeah.
They've responded. I asked on their Facebook page, when can we screen this to the public for free? And they said later in the fall, they're going to put out the information about doing that.
Excellent. Okay, so let's see. I guess that wraps us up for today. Any final comments before we go?
Thank you all very much. It's been amazing, and of course, every day it gets better and better. So thank you for your contribution. And thank you for being here on this.
Thank you for letting us participate, Sailesh. It's an honor to do this. You know, yeah, it's just an honor.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for. Yeah. It's lonely to be a lone nut dancing, you know. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for Jessica, Julie, Madhavi, Sailesh, and thank you all who are here with us on Zoom and on Facebook and watching the recordings. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time, 9 a.m. U.S. Pacific time. You can find information on how to join and what's going on and get notifications and that on the climatehealers.org/summit. You can also find all the replays in the Climate Healers Facebook group. Tomorrow, Dr. Rao is on with Dr. Will Tuttle of the World Peace Diet. And I've interviewed Will Tuttle myself several years ago and met him a few times, and he's a lovely, lovely man who has a beautiful message that, about, to me, his message really brings a lot of the different pieces together that we've been asking about today, about, the history and wealth and compassion and spirituality and all of that and the ethics and all of it into one. And so I'm sure that's going to be a fabulous interview. Anything you want to say to invite people to that, Sailesh?
I look forward to it. He's my inspiration. I think I heard about veganism from him first. I went to one of his talks. So he made me start thinking about it. Until then, I was a lacto-vegetarian.
Beautiful.
And as a PS, he turned. I read his book, and after the second page, I became vegan. That is the book that turned me vegan. Second page, 2 pages into it.
Right, yeah. I can imagine.
Great, wonderful man.
Awesome. Okay, well, we'll see you all back here tomorrow at 9 a.m. U.S. Pacific time and with Dr. Will Tuttle. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.